Folio Archives 30 श्रीला भक्तिदयिता माधवा गोस्वामी महाराजा नमको विष्णुपादाय रूपानुग प्रियाय सीए श्रीमते माधव गोस्वामी नामिने कृष्णाभिन्न प्रकाश श्रीमूर्ते दीनतारिणे क्षमा गुणावताराय गुर्वे प्रभाव नमः सतीर्थ प्रीति प्रदर्शिने ईशोद्यान प्रभावस्य प्रकाशकाय ते नमः श्रीक्षेत्रे प्रभुपादस्य स्थानोद्धार सुकीर्ते सारस्वत गणानंद संवर्धनाय ते नमः श्रीनामाचार्य जगद्गुरुं वंदे श्रीमाधवं गोस्वामी प्रभुं Obeisance to Srila Bhakti-dayita Madhava Gosvami Maharaj, the representative of Lord Vishnu and is dear to the followers of Rupa Goswami. Obeisance to you, Lord and Guru, who are the personification of the quality of forgiveness, who as Guru are the manifestation of Krishna meant to deliver the most fallen. Obeisance to you, whose religious principle is to act on your affection for your Guru and your God brothers, for which you revealed the spiritual power of the Lord's garden, Ishodhya, in Mayapur. Obeisance to you, who increased the joy of those devoted to Srila Bhakti-siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur by recovering his birthplace in Puri, for which you are justly renowned. I worship my Lord, Srila Bhakti-dayita Madhava Gosvami Maharaj, teacher of the holy name and spiritual master to the universe. Madhava Maharaj's appearance. 10th in line from Shri Chaitanya, P.A.R.A.M.A.H.A.S.A. Parivraj Kacharya O 108 Shri Srimad Bhakti-dayita Madhava Goswami Maharaj Vishnupda, one of the dearest associates of Prabhupada 108 Shri Srila Bhakti-siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur, the founder of the Chaitanya math and the Gaudiya maths throughout the world, was himself the founder of the Chaitanya Gaudiya math throughout India and my own spiritual master. He appeared in this world at 8 a.m. on Friday, Agrahayan 3, 1311, Bengali, or 18 November 1904, Utthane Kadshi, in the village of Kashchanparia in the Madaripur subdivision of Faridpur district in East Bengal. Utthane Kadshi is the tithi which marks the end of the Chaturmasya period, when Vishnu wakes up from his 4-month-long sleep. It thus brings joy and auspiciousness to the world. Similarly, the appearance on that tithi of the most compassionate dear associate of Lord Hari, our most worshipable Srila Bhakti-dayita Madhava Goswami Maharaj, had the effect of bringing joy and good fortune to the world's conditioned souls who are suffering from the threefold miseries. It is also significant that our Parmeshthi Guru, the incarnation of extreme renunciation, P.A.R.A.M.A.H.A.S.A. Vaishnav Srila Gaura Kishore Das Babaji, entered the eternal pastimes on this same tithi. Gurudev's birthplace and family. Kashchanparia village is in a pure and beautiful area on the banks of the Padma near its mouths in the precinct of Bhedragashj. The Padma river is sometimes called the Kirtinasha river, the river which destroyed once glories, because its annual flooding washes away so many villages and towns. Further upstream, however, there is a place called Prema Tali where Nityananda Prabhu once bathed, depositing divine love of God for Narottama Das Thakur. The village was prosperous and home to a large number of Brahmins. It was also the residence of my Gurudev's maternal uncles, who were of a prominent wealthy family in the area. Though they were talukdars or subsidiary landholders, they were given respect equal to that of zamindars. The British rulers of the day decorated them with the title Rajchakravarti. Thus, though the family name was Bandyopadhyay, their home came to be known as the Bari. The village is known to his disciples as Gurudev's Matulalay. The following is known about Srila Gurudev's paternal family. His grandfather was named Chandi Prasad Dev Sharma Bandyopadhyay. His father Nishikant. They lived in the village of Bharakar in the precinct of Tangibari in the Vikrampura subdivision of Dhaka district. Both Srila Gurudev's father and grandfather were well known in the district as righteous men. Srila Gurudev's mother, Shabalini Devi, was an extremely devoted woman who dedicated herself to the service of God, the Brahmins and holy men. Srila Gurudev lost his father at the age of 4, after which his mother took him and returned to her brother's home, which is where he was raised. His uncle's great affection for him played an important part in his upbringing. The name given him by his father was Sri Heramba Kumar Bandyopadhyay, but he was known by his nickname Ganesh. Guru Maharaj's childhood. From a very early age, Srila Gurudev began to display extraordinary qualities. He would never under any circumstances tell a lie. He would explain to his friends and companions the moral value of truth and the unsoundness of telling falsehoods. Everyone was impressed by the young lad's behavior. Even when very young, Srila Gurudev showed little interest in materialistic enjoyments. He distinguished himself from the other children in his desire to lead an orderly and disciplined life. Not only did he himself act in this way, but he encouraged the other children to do the same. He always tried to alleviate the sufferings of others and bring them happiness, even if it meant undergoing difficulty himself. People who observed the extent of his generosity and wisdom were convinced that he would grow up to be a great personality of extraordinary character. I personally heard from Srila Gurudev's mother that whenever she gave him some special delicacy or sweet, he would only eat whatever was left after he had called his friends and distributed it amongst them. At school, his teachers were astonished to hear him say things which showed a level of wisdom beyond his years. The following story can serve as an example. One day, he and some of his fellow students were playing as is wont for boys of that age. They were engaged in various competitions of speed and strength, including a running race. Srila Gurudev ran quickly and took the lead, but tripped on a root and fell with great force, causing him to bleed profusely. When his school teachers and other guardians heard, they rushed to the scene and applied medicines to his cuts and bruises. They also said many things to calm him, but he answered, "You need not worry on my account. I will quickly get better. The Lord does everything for our good. I could have injured my eyes, ears or broken my nose, but nothing serious like that happened. In my previous lives I committed so many sins that I should no doubt have suffered a more serious accident, but God is so merciful that He did not allow it to happen." When the school teachers heard him say these things, they immediately realized that he was no ordinary child. While in high school, Srila Gurudev started a library for the benefit of his poorer classmates and lent books to them without cost. Throughout his youth, Srila Gurudev was a natural leader as a result of his tall, handsome figure, his charismatic personality, his extraordinary honesty and patience. He never had to apply or stand for election to leadership positions. Wherever he chose to participate, others would unfailingly be impressed by his qualities and acclaim him as their leader. What is more, they were satisfied with his performance afterwards. In truth, leadership is the result of an individual's depth of character, exemplary behavior and competence. Tall and strong, Srila Gurudev also excelled in sports and was regularly made captain of his teams. He also participated in dramatic presentations. There was no area in which he did not excel, and thus he was always involved in directing the affairs of any group in which he participated. He even played a role in the independence movement. Beginnings of a spiritual calling. Srila Gurudev was exemplary in his devotion to his mother. She would read to him and have him read various scriptures so that he became conversant with religious issues and imbued with faith in God. She made him read the Bhagavad-gita daily, so that by the age of 11, Srila Gurudev had memorized the entire 700 verses of the text. He finished his primary and secondary education in Kanchanparya and Bhatagra. Then for higher education he went to Calcutta. While in Calcutta he began to feel great separation from the Supreme Lord. He stayed with a relative named Narayan Kandra Mukhopadhyay, who later took sannyas from him and was given the name Bodhayan Maharaj. Narayan Kandra recounted that he often saw Srila Gurudev calling out the names of the Lord and crying in the middle of the night. He would eat only Havishyanna, an unspiced khichuri, once a day. In this state of absorption in the Lord, he one day had a dream in which Narada Muni came and reassured him. Narada gave him a mantra and told him that by chanting it he would achieve all perfection. However, upon awakening, try as he might, Srila Gurudev was unable to recall the mantra he had been given in its entirety. The loss of the mantra bewildered and distressed him immeasurably. His irritation with life in the household reached an intolerable degree, and he became determined to abandon it. With this idea in mind, he went to ask the blessings of his widowed mother, who at that time was living in Gosai Durgapura in Nadia district. She made no effort to oppose his wishes. So, with an intense desire to have a vision of the Supreme Lord, Srila Gurudev set off for the Himalayas. Just as iron filings attracted by a magnetic force cannot be thwarted, the individual soul who has been attracted to the Supreme Soul allows nothing of this world, whether friends or family, to interfere with his calling. Srila Gurudev's visit to Haridwar. Srila Gurudev's passionate desire for the Lord brought him first to Haridwar and from there into the mountains. High up in the Himalayan jungle, he fasted for 3 days from food and water, all the time anxiously calling out to the Lord. When he had practically lost all awareness of the external world, he was given a divine order to seek out a spiritual master. He was also told that his Guru would appear to him in the very place he had left. Taking the divine order as his imperative, he came down from the mountain to the banks of the Ganges in the holy town of Haridwar, where he decided to stay for a few days. While there, he met a saintly person to whom he recounted all that had happened on the mountain. When he asked this sadhu for advice, he was told to return home and that he would meet a bona fide spiritual master there. Srila Gurudev made up his mind that he would return to Calcutta after spending a few more days in the pilgrimage town. But his stay in Haridwar was disturbed when a rich businessman and his wife from North India came there on pilgrimage. The couple, which was childless, saw the handsome figure of Srila Gurudev when bathing in Brahmakund and was attracted to him. They gave him a gift of fruit and sweets and insisted that he visit them in their lodgings. Out of courtesy, Srila Gurudev finally acceded to their request. At their place of residence, they once again fed him copiously and generally treated him with great affection. Finally, they proposed that he become their adopted son, which meant that he would eventually inherit their substantial wealth. Srila Gurudev was unprepared for such an offer and began to think, I came here with the intention of abandoning family life. Now Maya has devised another way to ensnare me. Srila Gurudev politely refused their proposal and left their home, but the businessman and his wife were so enamored of him that they came each day and repeatedly put pressure on him to accept their offer. One who has a sincere eagerness to attain to the Supreme Lord, however, cannot be swayed by any amount of material temptation. Someone filled with desires for sense enjoyment would have found it impossible to resist such an opportunity to become heir to a fortune, but Srila Gurudev had no such yearnings. Because of his sincere aspiration to worship the Lord, he considered the couple's invitation to be dangerous and rejected it out of hand. He consequently found it impossible to remain in Haridwar and returned to Calcutta without any further delay. These events took place sometime around 1925. Srila Gurudev meets Srila Prabhupada. In the same year, Srila Gurudev came to visit Mayapur for the first time with his childhood friend Narayan Kandra Mukhopadhyay and some other people. There they saw Srila Bhakti-siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur and were attracted by his superhuman personality. Srila Prabhupada said during a lecture they attended that it was all right to visit the deity form in the temple, but that one had to learn to see it first. One cannot really see it with eyes that are blinded by material desire, but only with the eyes of love. On the same day, Dr. N. Ghosh and his wife were initiated by Srila Prabhupada. After returning to Calcutta, Srila Gurudev started visiting the Gaudiya Math on Ultadanga Road to hear Srila Prabhupada speak Harikatha. Understanding that through service to the Vaishnavas one could clear the road to the Lord and receive His mercy, or perhaps wishing to teach that same principle to the world, Srila Gurudev sent much money and material for the math without any fanfare. During this period, he also spent much time in studying the scriptures. After hearing the Vaishnav doctrines from Srila Prabhupada, he became convinced of their reasonableness and superiority over other religious dogmas. He took shelter of Srila Prabhupada and on 4 September 1927, on Radhashtami, received initiation in the holy name and mantra at the Ultadanga Math. After initiation he was known as Hayagriv Das Brahmachari. Acharya Das Dev Sharma was the officiating priest at the Vaishnav fire sacrifice. Life and service in the Gaudiya Math. Not long after being initiated, Srila Gurudev decided to commit himself completely to the service of Krishna and his devotees by moving into the Math. He thus took the great vow of remaining a lifelong celibate or Nashtik Brahmachari. It was not long before Srila Gurudev was counted amongst Srila Prabhupada's leading disciples as a result of his dedicated service to his Guru, his unflagging enthusiasm, and his competence in a variety of services. Srila Prabhupada used the words volcanic energy to describe Srila Gurudev's unflinching resolve to accomplish the tasks given him, his application, and his success in all endeavors. Srila Gurudev was one of the leading collectors whose service was essential for maintaining Srila Prabhupada's vast movement and particularly the efforts made toward preaching Mahaprabhu's message in the West. Anyone who saw Srila Gurudev's golden form and heard him speak on Krishna-conscious subjects could not fail to be attracted. Many people came forth spontaneously and made donations to him. On Srila Prabhupada's order, Srila Gurudev spent a long time at the Madras Gaudiya Math, where he was chiefly responsible for the purchase of land, the construction of the temple, Naat and residences. During this time he was particularly encouraged by his senior godbrothers H. Prakshak Sridhar Maharaj and H. Hridayvana Bon Maharaj. In the course of collecting funds for this project, Srila Gurudev met with the leading citizens of Madras and became closely acquainted with many of them. Srila Prabhupada's advance man. In order to awaken consciousness of the Lord in ordinary folk, Srila Prabhupada travelled to Calcutta, Dhaka, Patna, Allahabad, Benares and other important places throughout India. He organized preaching festivals as well as parikramas of Vraja and Nabadvip Dhamas, established preaching centers and maths, spreading the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in various cities, putting on programs and sending out street Sankirtan parties. He also established shrines of Mahaprabhu's feet, Padpithas, in many of the places that the Lord had visited, restored other holy sites, published transcendental books, magazines and newspapers in a variety of languages in order to spread the message of pure devotion. In all these preaching programs, Srila Gurudev was one of the leading participants. Srila Prabhupada generally sent Srila Gurudev as the advance man to do the groundwork for these events. He had complete faith that whatever task he gave him would be carried out to completion. Srila Gurudev was one of the principal devotees charged with purchasing land in Andhra Pradesh near Goshpat Tirtha in Rajmundry district and the construction of the Ramananda Gaudiya Math in memory of Mahaprabhu's intimate associate Ramananda Raya, whose meeting with Lord Chaitanya took place there. No matter how important a personality, whenever anyone met Srila Gurudev with his handsome features and imposing physique, his pleasant manner, his extraordinary personality, his facility with modern reasoning and his ability to convince by means of irrefutable scriptural evidence, he would become enchanted and be quite happy to do anything requested of him. Srila Gurudev's entire being, his meditation, his consciousness, his japa, everything was fully devoted to fulfilling Srila Prabhupada's desires. The volunteer workers of today could not even imagine the extent of his commitment to service, through which he gave up eating and sleeping, working through the night if necessary to achieve his goals. Srila Gurudev's single-minded, sincere allegiance to his spiritual master is an example to be followed by everyone. He never undertook any task without the express direction of his spiritual master. As a result of his full surrender to Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet, he came to inherit his divine potency for spreading Lord Chaitanya's mission in its entirety. Srila Prabhupada's visit to Assam. We can know the degree to which Srila Prabhupada trusted Srila Gurudev and considered him to be a responsible servant and intimate associate from comments he made in March of 1936 on the occasion of the installation of Sri Sri Gandharvika deities at the Sarbhog, Assam, Gaudiya Math, one of the 64 mutts and preaching centers that was established during Srila Prabhupada's lifetime was the Sarbhog Gaudiya Math in Assam's Kamrup district, near Barpeta. Srila Prabhupada sent Srila Gurudev along with his senior godbrother, H. Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj, Janki Das Brahmachari and others to make preparations for the installation of deities in the math. At that time, the math was under the direction of Srila Gurudev's senior godbrother, H. Tridandi Swami Vigshan Ashram Maharaj. When Srila Gurudev's party arrived in Sarbhog only a few days before the festival date, they were shocked to find that little or nothing had been done in preparation for Srila Prabhupada's coming and the installation of the deities. Srila Gurudev's personality was such never stopped working until his desired goals were achieved, nor did he ever lose his enthusiasm. He immediately brought all his efforts to bear on arranging for temporary quarters for Srila Prabhupada and the other devotees who would be coming with him. When Srila Prabhupada arrived at the Sarbhog rail station at 6:30 am on Sunday, 15th March 1936, he was greeted by a large party of devotees and local citizens. Noteworthy amongst those who accompanied him were Kushjavihari Vidyabhushan Prabhu, Parmanand Vidyaratna Prabhu, Vasudeva Prabhu, Kirtananand Brahmachari, Sajjana Maharaj, Krishan Keshav Brahmachari, etc. On each of the 3 days that Srila Prabhupada remained in Sarbhog, thousands of men, women and children were satisfied with varieties of Mahaprasad. On the following day, Srila Prabhupada ordered Tridandi Swami Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj to make final arrangements for Sri Sri Gandharvika installation rituals over which he was to officiate. As a part of these arrangements, Sridhar Maharaj dressed the deities and decorated them with flower garlands, etc. At the auspicious moment at 10 o'clock in the morning, upon being told that everything was ready, Srila Prabhupada entered the temple room, took darshan of the garlanded deities and paid his prostrated obeisances to them. On seeing that they were already decorated, he said, The deities have already been installed. On hearing this, Sridhar Maharaj immediately became remorseful, thinking that he had committed an offence by doing something which Srila Prabhupada himself had intended to do. Despite his faux pas, the installation of the deities was performed in great splendor according to the regulations of the Smritis and in the midst of joyous Sankirtan. At the end of the installation ceremony, Ashram Maharaj repeatedly asked Srila Gurudev to tell Srila Prabhupada that Nimanand Brahmachari had not carried out his duties. Srila Gurudev was reluctant to anything which would be displeasing to Srila Prabhupada, and so at first refused. Upon being pressed, however, he felt obliged to do as he was asked out of respect for his senior godbrother. Later that day, while Srila Prabhupada was out walking, Srila Gurudev followed behind him fanning to keep the flies away. As they were talking, he told Prabhupada of Ashram Maharaj's complaint. As soon as Srila Prabhupada heard it, he became angry and chastised Srila Gurudev, who felt extremely sorry at having displeased him. Sri Prabhupada, however, seeing the effect his words had on Srila Gurudev, immediately changed his mood and began to praise him affectionately. Srila Gurudev was not happy at hearing these praises, however, because he thought that Srila Prabhupada was afraid that he was not be able to take criticism. But Srila Prabhupada began to give him many valuable personal instructions which showed the extent to which he held his disciple dear. Srila Prabhupada first said, "Why do you want so much? And why do you let it bother you that much? It is not proper to expect so much service from such and such a person. Your service to your spiritual master and all its details are your responsibility alone. You should be grateful if anyone else contributes to it in any way. Krishna's majordomo is Srimati Radhika. She knows that she alone is entirely responsible for Krishna's pleasure. If anyone comes forward to help her, she is filled with gratitude." Here it is apparent that Srila Prabhupada was saying that it was up to Srila Gurudev to take full responsibility for his service in its entirety. If anyone should assist him in the fulfillment of that responsibility, he should be grateful. From this statement it is clear that Srila Prabhupada considered him to be a confidential associate. Because of the similarity of Srila Gurudev's physical appearance to that of the tall, light-skinned Srila Prabhupada, people often mistook him to be his son. Srila Gurudev often recounted the story of the Sarbhog Gaudiya math when he wished to give an example of the process of surrender to his disciples. We have already stated that His Grace Sridhar Maharaj felt as though he had committed an offence for having garlanded the deities in the place of Srila Prabhupada. Sridhar Maharaj asked Srila Gurudev to approach Srila Prabhupada and ask him for forgiveness on his behalf, that he made the mistake unintentionally. Having been so entreated by Sridhar Maharaj, Srila Gurudev wrote a letter to Srila Prabhupada in which he prayed for forgiveness on Sridhar Maharaj's behalf. Prabhupada answered that a surrendered soul never commits offences. The Lord never sees the faults of one who is surrendered to Him, always forgiving him, for the surrendered person has given up everything for the service of the Lord without any ulterior motive. On the other hand, someone who has ulterior motives and is not surrendered must fear offences at every moment. Srila Gurudev does not go west. Srila Prabhupada was eager to preach Mahaprabhu's message in the Western world and had decided to send Srila Gurudev as he was competent for the mission. Srila Gurudev and two others had their photos taken and passports made in preparation for the trip. When everything was ready, Rajarshi Shardindu Narayan Rai said to Srila Prabhupada, "England is a land full of heavenly nymphs. I don't think it is a good idea to send handsome young men there to preach. You should rather send a more aged disciple. Srila Prabhupada thought that the suggestion of Rajarshi Shardindu Narayan was not without foundation and decided to send H. Pradeep Tirtha Maharaj in Srila Gurudev's place. He instructed Srila Gurudev to collect money for the preaching mission. Srila Gurudev was afraid that Srila Prabhupada would not remain in the world much longer and had been worried that if sent to England he may never see him again. He was thus relieved when on the advice of the Rajarshi Srila Prabhupada changed his mind about sending him there. Meeting with Paschanand Tarkaratna, Srila Prabhupada recognized that Srila Gurudev possessed a great talent for persuading others by defeating their arguments in a humble and respectful manner. As a result, on 4 October 1936, he decided to send him to Bengal's leading scholar, Paschanand Tarkaratna of Bhattaparya in Nehati. Paschanand Tarkaratna was very proud of his Brahmanhood and his scholarship and had forcefully criticized the Varnashram system preached by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada was afraid that his criticisms could cause untold harm to countless people seeking the ultimate good and thus gave the responsibility of meeting him to Srila Gurudev. Paschanand Tarkaratna was reluctant to give proper respect to anyone who was not born in the Brahman caste. For this reason, Srila Prabhupada told Gurudev give his previous identity as a high caste Brahman and to go without thilka or Vaishnav dress. On the given day, at 8:30 in the morning, Srila Gurudev came to Paschanand Tarkaratna's house accompanied by Prafulla Kandra Chattopadhyay of Nehati Kanthalparya. He first met with the Pandit highly qualified son, Sri Jiva Nyaitirth, and then spent 2 hours in scriptural discussions with him. Srila Gurudev often recounted the experience that he had to his disciples. It is true that Paschanand Tarkaratna possessed vast learning. He had memorized large numbers of verses from scripture, but in some cases was not able to come to logical conclusions or to resolve contradictions. In his arguments he would come to a blind lane and would not be able to give a proper answer when questioned. When asked how such a great scholar could end up this way, Srila Gurudev would answer, Pandit Mahashay had never had the opportunity to associate with a pure devotee or a real saintly person. Only by following a pure devotee or through associating with saintly persons can one arrive at the right conclusions. Srila Gurudev's long conversation with Paschanand Tarkaratna resulted in an article which headlined the Gaudiya, the Maths Bengali Weekly, 15.13, 1936. Srila Gurudev meets Dr. C. V. Raman. The following events took place in 1930 while Srila Prabhupada was still present. A month-long festival was being held at the Calcutta Bagh Bazar Gaudiya Math for Janmashtami. Each day a different dignitary was invited to sit as honorary chairman of the evening meeting. Some students of world-renowned scientist C. V. Raman were amongst those who came regularly to listen to the lectures of the Gaudiya math preachers. One day, these students came to see Srila Prabhupada and complained that every day a different distinguished person was being made honorary chairman, but their professor, whose fame had spread throughout the world, had not even been invited. Srila Prabhupada answered that he had no objection to having Dr. Raman be honorary chairman one evening. He asked Srila Gurudev to take charge of inviting him. Srila Gurudev first went to Dr. Raman's house but did not find him there. His wife sent him with an orderly to Dr. Raman's laboratory on Circular Road. There, Srila Gurudev met with the scientist on the second floor where he was sitting in a corner of a huge loft, engaged in his research activity. Dr. Raman spoke neither Bengali nor Hindi and so their conversation took place in English. Upon being asked by Dr. Raman the reason for his coming, Srila Gurudev answered, a large month-long religious gathering is being held by the Bagh Bazar Gaudiya Math at Janmashtami. On each day, a different dignitary of the city is invited to grace the chairman's seat, and we humbly invite you to do the same. Dr. Raman answered, I do not believe in your Keshtobishtu. I have no faith in anything that cannot be confirmed by direct sensory experience. I cannot waste my valuable time with imaginary things. I would prefer to attend any conference dealing with science or education. Srila Gurudev said, your own students have been coming regularly to listen to the Maths Swamijis speak. It was their desire that you be honored in the same way that so many other Calcutta community leaders have been. I have been asked by my Gurudev to invite you, so please accept our invitation. Dr. Raman then challenged Srila Gurudev, can you show me your God? If you can show him to me, I will go. One side of the lab room in which the conversation was being held was a windowless, doorless wall, on the other side of which lay the whole of North Calcutta. Srila Gurudev asked, I can see nothing on the other side of this wall, but if I say that there is nothing there, will that be true? Dr. Raman answered, perhaps you cannot see what is there, but I will be able to through the use of the appropriate instruments. Srila Gurudev then asked him, there is a limit to what your instruments can do. You can only see as far as they allow you. Can you say that there is nothing beyond these limits? Dr. Raman replied, never mind. I will not waste my time on this. I will not give my attention to anything which is not within my sense experience. I will only spare my valuable time if you can actually show me your God. Can you do it? Srila Gurudev, if your students were to say to you that they will study your scientific findings only if you can show them the truth of what you have realized through your experiments, what would you say? Dr. Raman, I would make them realize it. Srila Gurudev, can you make them realized before teaching them? Dr. Raman, no. I would first have to show them the process by which I have come to realize the truth. They will have to follow that process if they want to have the same realization. First they have to earn their degree, then their MSc. Then they will have to study with me for another 5 years. Then I will be able to make them understand. Srila Gurudev, if that is what you say, then can the seers of ancient India not say exactly the same thing? Follow their process and see whether you experience God's existence or not. You are not able to show the scientific truths which you profess to your students until they have adopted your process. Similarly, if you want to experience or understand God, you have to follow the process by which that is accomplished. If it does not happen, then you can deny its value. But how can you deny its value without having experimented? Dr. Raman could not answer. After a few moments of silence, he said, I know nothing about Krishna. If I go, I will be able to say nothing. You would be better off inviting someone who knows something about these matters. Srila Gurudev's quick-wittedness and presence of mind was such that it was impossible to get away with an illogical statement in his presence. Such capacity does not come with simple book learning. Only one who has surrendered himself to his spiritual master and has come to direct realization of the truth through his mercy can display such divine power through the influence of his spiritual master. To such a person, a display of intelligence without any basis in realization cannot get very far. After the disappearance of Srila Prabhupada instructed all of his disciples to follow him in preaching the message of Sri Rupa and Raghunath Goswamis, and that they should work together to achieve this one purpose. From the superficial point of view of a short-sighted pessimist, the events which followed Srila Prabhupada's disappearance appear to go against his orders. But whatever comes about as a result of the all-auspicious Lord Hari's desire is for the good of everyone. If we are unable to see the truth of this basic tenet of spiritual life, we become incapable of recognizing the order which exists in creation and become unhappy as a result. Nothing takes place contrary to the will of the Lord. One who believes that He is all-auspicious must also accept that whatever takes place is somehow working toward the fulfillment of some larger, auspicious purpose. The short-sighted are only able to realize this after much water has flowed under the bridge. Mahaprabhu said, "My name will be preached in every town and village throughout the world." In order to bring this prophecy to fruition, it was his will and that of his Prakashmurti, Srila Prabhupada, who is non-different from him, that those leading disciples who had been enriched by their blessings should be inspired to work to that end independently. Srila Prabhupada did not wish that those worthy disciples of his, who had attained the qualifications to act as Acharya, should be restricted or limited in their activities. As a result of their being empowered by him to spread Mahaprabhu's message, the movement has today been acknowledged and adopted by many persons throughout the world, fulfilling the Lord's prediction. If they were ordinary flawed living beings who disregarded the wishes of their spiritual master, then such widespread successes would not have been possible. When those hapless people who are ignorant of the overall intention of the Supreme Lord praise one of Srila Prabhupada's disciples and condemn another, they fall from the path of spiritual life and into the muck of Vaishnav Aparad. All of Srila Prabhupada's associates tried or are trying to sincerely follow his orders to the extent of their abilities. As the result of these sincere efforts, great numbers of wretched souls have been attracted to the teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and have accepted the discipline of Vaishnav Sadachar. They have been engaged in the worship of Lord Krishna according to the doctrines of pure devotional service and have thus made their lives successful. Opening the Shyamananda Gaudiya Math. In 1942, just prior to taking the vows of Tridandi Sannyas, Srila Gurudev worked together with his godbrothers, particularly H. Tridandi Swami Bhaktikumuda Santa Maharaj and H. Tridandi Swami Vichar Yayabar Maharaj to establish a mutt in the city of Midinpur. This mutt was named the Shyamananda Gaudiya Math in honor of Shyamananda Prabhu, who first preached Mahaprabhu's message in this area. As a result of the preaching efforts of these godbrothers, many men and women of the city became attracted to Mahaprabhu's message, took up the regulative principles of Vaishnav Sadachar and the path of devotional service as ordained by Sri Chaitanya. The Gaudiya Math's good name spread throughout the region and many wealthy citizens of Midinpur city took up the task of establishing a permanent branch there. With their help, land and a large two-story building were purchased in the Shiva Bazar area for the math. Srila Gurudev told the story of how one of the chief donors, Govardhana Piri Mahashay, came into contact with the math and the amazing change in his life as he renounced all sinful activity to engage in the service of Krishna and the devotees. When Srila Gurudev was in search of donations for the establishment of the mutt, he suggested going to visit Piri, but local people counselled him not to. They described him as a great miser who would not give a paisa to a poor person in need. They told Srila Gurudev that if he went to see him, he was sure to be insulted. Srila Gurudev answered, "A sadhu shouldn't be bothered by the fear of insults, nor should he seek praise. If Govardhana Piri is a miser, then the sadhus should make an effort to see that he changes his ways. There is no need to change a good person. We can see the real results of preaching when bad people change and become good." One day, Srila Gurudev went to Govardhana Piri office and was greeted cordially and given a suitable seat. When he heard from Srila Gurudev that he was desirous of opening a preaching center by which the ultimate good for the jivas could be done through the spreading of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings, Govardhana Babu responded by saying that his family had worshipped Radha and Krishna for generations and that they continued to serve the deities in his home. He invited Srila Gurudev to come and see them and took him to his rooftop temple to take darshan of his deities. Srila Gurudev was very pleased to see the beautiful Radha Krishna deities and said, Radha and Krishna are the object of our worship. As yet we have no deities in our preaching center. We would be very grateful if you gave us these deities for our temple. Govardhana Babu answered, these are our family deities, and they have a great deal of land in their name. It is impossible for us to part with them. However, if you want to have deities brought for your temple, I will pay the cost. Srila Gurudev told him that the Gaudiya Math imported their images of Radha and Krishna from Jaipur, but Govardhana Babu was not deterred and continued to agree to bear all the expenses. When Srila Gurudev returned to the ashram and told his companions about Govardhana Babu's offer, they were all dumbfounded. Govardhana Babu paid not only for the deities, but for their service, their dress and ornaments, the installation ceremony and the feast which followed it. Thereafter, he began coming regularly to hear Harikatha in the temple. In time, as a result of the association of devotees, he came to realize that materialistic life was without substance and gave up all sinful practices. Understanding that true happiness could only be found in worshipping the Lord, he took initiation in the holy name and the mantra and adopted a regulated Vaishnav life. When the local people saw the amazing change in Govardhana Babu's behavior, they were astonished and overjoyed. One day his wife came to the mutt and in an outburst of emotion, fell at Srila Gurudev's feet and said, after your coming, my husband has been returned to me. All our family problems have disappeared. We cannot say how many people's lives were affected by coming into contact with Srila Gurudev after having sweet dealings with him. This is only a single small example of how one person's life was completely changed. Srila Gurudev takes sannyas. Immediately prior to taking sannyas, Srila Gurudev went on a preaching tour of Bankura and Midinpur districts, visiting Kedardanga, Onda, Jhanti Pahadi, Bankura city, and Gardevta, etc. People everywhere were impressed by his personality, his upstanding character and his powerful Harikatha, and became attracted to the gospel of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Accompanying him on this trip were Krishankeshav Brahmachari, Ramgovinda Brahmachari, Kushjalal Prabhu, Harigovinda Prabhu and other god brothers. Helping the preaching work in Kedardanga and Onda were Radha Govinda Seat and Avinash Pal respectively. Although Srila Prabhupada had intended to give Srila Gurudev Tridandi Sannyas, he never did so because of the important role he played in fundraising. Not long after Srila Prabhupada's disappearance, however, a large group of Gurudev's godbrothers appealed to him to take the renounced order. Amongst them were Kushjavihari Vidyabhushan Prabhu, H. Prakash Aranya Maharaj, H. Bhaktisarvasva Giri Maharaj, H. Bhaktiswarupa Parvata Maharaj, H. Prasoon Bodhayan Maharaj, Krishankeshav Brahmachari, Gopal Brahmachari. They convinced him that if he wished to give full commitment to the fulfillment of Srila Prabhupada's command to preach Mahaprabhu's message, it was incumbent on him to take sannyas. Thus, on the 457th anniversary of Mahaprabhu's appearance, on the Falguni Purnima of 1944, at the age of 40, he took sannyas on the grounds of the Tota Gopinath temple from H. Bhakti Gaurva Vaikhanas Maharaj according to the Vaishnav rituals. He was thenceforth known as Parivraj Kacharya Tridandiswami Srimad Bhakti-dayita Madhava Gosvami Maharaj. Other important godbrothers present on that occasion were Kushavihari Vidyabhushan Prabhu, Parmanand Vidyaratna Prabhu, H. Parvata Maharaj, H. Bodhayan Maharaj, etc. After taking sannyas, when Srila Gurudev returned to the Shyamananda Gaudiya Math in Medinipura on Vishnu 3, 458 Gaurabd, he was greeted with great pomp by the members of the Vishwa Vaishnav Raj Sabha. The Vishwa Vaishnav Raj Sabha presented him with a special certificate in which they praised him for his fearlessness, his saintly courage, his ability to enchant people when speaking on religious topics, and above all, his affection for the devotees by which he gave great joy to Srila Prabhupada. Of all of Srila Gurudev's virtues, his attachment to his spiritual master and his affection for his godbrothers were exemplary. After Srila Prabhupada's disappearance, whenever any of his godbrothers were faced with hardship, he would immediately step forward without considering his own happiness or distress in order to give them a helping hand. Many of Prabhupada's worthiest disciples were unable to come to terms with the turmoil in which the math found itself after his disappearance and either returned to householder life or considered doing so. Srila Gurudev took a lot of trouble to find them at their home and to persuade them to return to the math and a life of service to the Lord. Some of those he brought back subsequently took the role of Acharya. Devotees are the worldly manifestation of Krishna. Affection for them accurately demonstrates the extent of one's affection for Krishna. Similarly, the Guru's disciples are the manifestations of the Guru himself, and affectionate behavior to them demonstrates the depth of one's love for the Guru. Srila Gurudev's exemplary love for his godbrothers was evident to the very last days of his presence in this world. Preaching activities in East Pakistan. After Srila Gurudev took sannyas, just prior to Indian independence, 1947, and afterward, he went on an extended preaching tour throughout India and East Pakistan, modern Bangladesh. Accompanying him were Mihir Prabhu, Sankarshan Prabhu, Krishankeshav Brahmachari, Trailokya Prabhu, Mahendra Prabhu, Shri Brahma, Pyari Mohan Brahmachari, Yajsheshwar Das Babaji Maharaj, and others. Some of the important places he visited in Dhaka and Mymensingh districts were Baliyati, Nawabganj, Kalkopa village, Jamukhi, Pakulla, and Chure. While in Jamukhi Pakulla in Mymensingh district, Srila Gurudev gave a lecture in a pandal set up at the local high school which he often talked about later. In the audience that gathered, more than 1,000 people of both Hindu and Muslim faiths were present. Many students and teachers from the school were also there. Several local policemen gave Srila Gurudev the friendly warning that following partition, the situation was tense in the new country of Pakistan. He should therefore be careful about what he said and did because the government was watching him. If complaints were made that something he said went against Pakistan's interests, he could be jailed. After having received this warning and seeing the large numbers of police officers present in the crowd, Srila Gurudev started to worry about the difficulties of being put in prison, where one would surely have to come into contact with many untouchable foodstuffs, etc. He thus wanted to avoid interruptions from the audience and so requested the listeners to save their questions for which he would leave 15 to 20 minutes at the end of his discourse. He furthermore said he would entertain any inquiries on matters not related to his lecture at his quarters at another time. If anyone interrupted the lecture to ask questions, it would disrupt the proceedings and cause distress to the other listeners. Despite this request, however, after Srila Gurudev had been speaking for half an hour, a mullah stood up and asked, "What is the reasoning behind the Hindu custom of worshipping idols, Parasti?" Many of the people in the audience were irritated by the interruption and told him to hush up and Srila Gurudev not to answer. But Srila Gurudev welcomed the mullah's question by praising it, saying that it was deserving of an answer from which everyone present could profit. Furthermore, by answering it he would not wander from the subject under discussion, but would rather enrich it. He then proceeded to deal with the mullah's question as follows. He said that before answering him, he wished to ask him a question, do you believe in God, Khuda? The mullah said, of course I do. Srila Gurudev then asked, do you believe in Khuda omnipotence? The mullah loudly declared, Khuda is all-powerful. Srila Gurudev then laughed and said, there you have your answer. Not realizing the implications of the word omnipotent the mullah was at first confused by Srila Gurudev's answer. So Gurudev started to clarify by asking, this time with the help of an example, is God powerful enough to take a menacing elephant and to push him through the hole of the smallest needle without even harming a hair on his body? When the mullah remained silent, Srila Gurudev continued, Maulvi Sahib does not know the extent of Khuda powers, but the fact is that nothing is impossible for the omnipotent Lord. Kartum akartum anyatha ke rtu yah samarthasa eva ishwarah. He can do whatever he imagines, undo it or change whatever he has done. The Supreme Lord is all-powerful and nothing is beyond his abilities. The omnipotent Lord is not limited to the powers which we ascribe to him. That is not what is meant by omnipotence. The Shaktiman is one who possesses all powers imaginable and unimaginable. Once we have accepted that the Supreme Lord is omnipotent, we cannot say, he can do such and such, but not this or that. In accordance with his wishes, the supremely powerful Lord can appear in any form he desires, at any time, with his full complement of powers. If you say that he cannot, then there is no point in claiming that he is all-powerful. Any figure that a man may create out of the 5 elements, or any entity that he imagines with his material mind, whether with form or formless, is all material. That is what we call a putula or an idol. There is no regulation in the Sanatan Dharma for the worship of such idols. What is ordained, rather, is service to the Lord's deity form or Shri. The Shri is that form which the all-powerful Supreme Lord feels obliged to accept as a result of his devotees' love for him. There is a gulf of difference between an idol and the Lord's deity form. Even though the Lord's deity form is purely spiritual, Anand, a materially conditioned soul is unable to recognize him, just as he would be unable to recognize the Lord if he appeared incarnate directly before him. One can only perceive the Lord's divine form with the eyes of pure devotion. A vision of the Lord which has not been earned is not a true vision of the Lord. Preaching in Assam. After East Pakistan, Srila Gurudev took his party into Assam, recalling that Srila Prabhupada had once directly ordered him to preach there, as the Assamese people are simple and have faith in sadhus. To fulfill that order, Srila Gurudev first went to Sarbhog near Barpeta in Kamrup district. Accompanying him were Bhuvna Prabhu, Uddharan Prabhu, and Krishan Keshav Brahmachari Prabhu. Because of problems in the Gaudiya math subsequent to the disappearance of Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev stayed at the house of Krishan Keshav Brahmachari's brother rather than in the math. As there had been torrential rains and extensive flooding in the area, the devotees had to put all their bedding in an ox cart and walk through knee-deep water to get to there. As the veranda and ground floor of the house were under water, the party had to construct a bamboo platform on which to sleep, while another such platform served as a toilet. Even in these difficult circumstances, Krishan Keshav Prabhu's devout mother daily cooked meals for the Vaishnavas. The war with Japan was at its height during this period, and the Japanese army had already conquered Burma and crossed the border into Assam. The British Indian government's War Ministry had ordered many homes throughout Assam to be requisitioned for quartering Indian army troops. Krishankeshav Brahmachari's family home was one of those taken over for this purpose, and Srila Gurudev and his party were obliged to stay in some village not far from Sarbho. This is just a small example of how Srila Gurudev was prepared to accept any difficulty to follow the orders of his own spiritual master and to bring auspiciousness to those who had forgotten Krishna. Srila Gurudev preached in these untoward circumstances for 7 days before moving to Sarbhog, where he stayed in Gopal Prabhu's house. While there, he gave daily Bhagavatam lectures at the house of a local high school teacher and leading citizen, Chintahan Patgiri. Those who became Srila Gurudev's disciples during his preaching activities in Sarbhog were Gopal Dasadhikari and his wife, Shivananda Dasadhikari, Khagen Dasadhikari, and Achyutanand Dasadhikari. A local youth named Kamalakanta Goswami was a regular attendant at Srila Gurudev's Bhagavad lectures. He was so attracted by Mahaprabhu's teachings that he decided to leave home and join his preaching party. Shivananda Prabhu and his nephew enthusiastically invited Srila Gurudev to visit their village, Bhavanipur Tapa, where he stayed for a few days. Kamalakanta Goswami accompanied the Vaishnav group to Tapa, but when his father, Ghankant Goswami, found out, he came there, severely chastised him, and took him back home. Ghankant was conditioned to believe in the superiority of Brahmins. He did not accept the rationale behind the Varnashram taught by the Gaudiya math. He considered that his son had lost his caste status by eating the food of the devotees, and he instructed him to remain outside the house until he had atoned. Kamalakanta had been born in a very high caste, but after hearing the pure scriptural doctrines from Srila Gurudev about the differences between a Vaishnav and a Brahman, about the superiority of the Vaishnav and about how a Vaishnav can be born in any race or caste, he could not understand what fault there was in taking food which had been cooked and served by Vaishnavas who followed the religious practices prescribed in the scriptures. He could not approve of his father's attitude, which was disrespectful to the Vaishnavas, and in order to avoid offences, he left home again the very next day and came back to Tapa to surrender to Srila Gurudev. Though Kamalakanta wanted to take initiation, Srila Gurudev worried that his father and family might cause trouble, and thought it better to not give him Naam and Mantra on that occasion. In Tapa, several wealthy Marwadi businessmen were attracted to Srila Gurudev and took great care to serve the Vaishnavas and to help the preaching of Mahaprabhu's gospel. Shivananda Prabhu was very renounced, even though married. He gave his worthy son, Lokesh, to Srila Gurudev to be fully engaged in the service of Guru and Gauranga. It is rare to see a father give his own son over to devotional service in this way. Shivananda Prabhu's nephew Sri Lohita and son Lokesh were initiated in the holy name at the house of Tularam Babu in Tapa. Just before leaving for Calcutta, Srila Gurudev also initiated Kamalakanta Goswami, Ramprasad and Bhavanand in the holy name. He gave full initiation to Sri Lohita, Lokesh and Kamalakanta when they arrived in the Midanpur Mutt. They were given the names Lalitachan Brahmachari, Loknath Brahmachari and Prasad Brahmachari, respectively. All three of these devotees later took sannyas from Srila Gurudev and were known thereafter as Tridandi Swami Srimad Bhakti-dayita Giri Maharaj, Tridandi Swami Srimad Suhrid Damodar Maharaj, and Tridandi Swami Srimad Prasad Ashram Maharaj. Bhagavad Path at the Chief Minister's house. Before returning to Calcutta, Srila Gurudev spent a few days in the Assamese capital, Guwahati. Through the efforts of Krishankeshav Brahmachari, and Chintaharn Patgiri, he had the opportunity to meet many of Assam's leading citizens and preach to them. Amongst these people were Assam's Chief Minister, Gopinath Baridle, Durgeshwar Sharma, Kumudeshwar Goswami, Bhuvna Goswami, Kankeshwar Goswami, Rohini Chaudhuri, Naveen Baridle, Girija Das, Dhiren Deva, Karitra Babu, Narendra Babu, etc. Arrangements were made for Srila Gurudev to give Bhagavad discourses at the Chief Minister's house. The people who came there to heard him speak the pure doctrines of the Bhagavad were enchanted. One day after Gurudev's lecture, Gopinath Baridla came to him with great enthusiasm and praised his explanation of Siddhanta. He said, "Upon hearing your Bhagavad Path, I am convinced that your objectives and those of Mahatma Gandhi are the same. You give so many examples from scripture and explain everything logically, and then you tell people to chant the names of Krishna." Gandhiji also ends his speeches, in which he has talks about so many different things, by engaging everyone in Ram. So both of you have the same goal, to make people chant the names of God. I don't see any difference between your messages. What do you think of this opinion? Srila Gurudev recognized that Gopinath Baridla had great faith and affection for him. He did not wish to disturb his mind by saying something which would hurt him, so he decided to instruct him according to his level of understanding. He said, "If you don't mind, then I will tell you what I think." The Chief Minister said, "I have been illuminated by all your valuable instructions. I have never heard such a learned discourse on the Bhagavad from anyone else before. How could I mind if you say anything at all for my benefit? Speak freely and say whatever you wish to say." Guru Maharaj then said, "Before I entered the math, I used to take part in the freedom movement. Gandhi's Sabarmati Ashram used to publish an English newspaper called Young India, which I often read. I remember once that Gandhiji told his audience in a speech that he was ready to abandon even the chanting of the holy name for the sake of his country. As far as I can remember, his exact words were, 'I can sacrifice Ram for my country.' We, on the other hand, say exactly the opposite. We can sacrifice our country for Ram. Our worshipable Lord Rama is not there for us, and our ends, everything is there for him." Western philosophers have defined the absolute by saying, the absolute is for itself and by itself. We do not have an it God. Our Lord is the Supreme Person, the He God, so we prefer to say, the absolute is for himself and by himself. The unlimited universes come out of him, they exist within him, and they are maintained by him. So their existence is uniquely to fulfill his ends. If anyone wishes to worship the Lord, he must have a proper theological understanding. Gopinath Baridle was so influenced by Srila Gurudev's powerful personality that he told him he wanted to abandon householder life and live in the math, dedicating his entire life to the service of the Lord. Unfortunately, his associates would not let him leave politics. Not long afterward he died, and so was never able to do as he had wished. Politics are so entangling that once one has gotten involved in them, it is very difficult to extricate oneself. As a result of the influence Srila Gurudev had on all these important people in Guwahati, he became well known both in the city and outside it. After completing his preaching activities there, he returned to Calcutta. Bhakti-dayita Maharaj takes shelter. In 1947, Srila Gurudev returned to Assam, this time to Golpara. He was invited by the Gaudiya math householder, Radha Mohana Dasadhikari. Accompanying him were Krishankeshav Brahmachari, Uddharan Brahmachari, Madhvanand Vrajvasi, and Ratharudh Das Brahmachari. Srila Gurudev and his companions headquartered in Radha Mohana Das's house, and held meetings in various parts of the town. The regular Harisabha in Golpara held a special assembly at which the town's leading barrister, Shirod Sena, was made president. Amongst the other important people who were present were the local district attorney, Kamakhyachan Sena, and the pleader for the Mechpara estate, Priya Kumar Guharaya. Kamakhyachan Guharaya, son of Dhirendra Guharaya, first met Srila Gurudev at Radha Mohana's house in Golpara. He later took initiation and became known as Krishnavallabha Brahmachari, and after sannyas, Tridandi Swami Bhakti-dayita Maharaj. He came with his friend Devavrata, Ravi, to ask some questions about spiritual life, as he wished to establish clearly by what method he could attain the Lord. When he first saw him sitting on an elevated seat and paid his obeisances to him, Kamakhyachan felt Srila Gurudev's blessings being showered on him, and his entire body erupted with horripilation. He asked him the following question: "When I chant the holy name, it seems as though I will see the Lord any minute. Then I will have to leave my home and family, giving up all the love I feel for them. This troubles me so much that I stop chanting. Please give me some advice so that I won't stop chanting when these thoughts start bothering me." Even though the question did not show great intellectual depth, Srila Gurudev praised it to give enthusiasm to the questioner. He then said, "A few geese used to live by a lake which was really nothing more than a stinking, stagnating little water hole. They lived quite happily there, eating the plentiful snails, clams, worms and shrimp. One day, they saw a flock of their cousins, the swans, flying overhead. The large birds looked so beautiful with their sparkling white wings that the geese began to think that the place where they were heading must surely be much more wonderful than their water hole. If they could only live there, surely they would become as beautiful as the swans and be as happy as they." The swans had been to the sea and were now on their way to Manas Sarovara for the summer. One of them saw the geese looking at them so pitifully and felt compassion for them. He came down to land near geese who were astonished by the swans' beauty. They asked him if he could take them with him to his home. The swan said that he had come precisely for that reason, to take them away from this putrid place. But when he told them to follow him, the poor geese pleaded that they were unable to fly very far. The swan felt so sorry for them that he told them to climb on his back and that he would carry them. The geese then started to wonder whether they would be able to find the snails, clams, worms and shrimp they were used to eating once they were at Manas Sarovara. The swan answered that such disgusting things were not available there, and that the swans lived on lotus stems. The geese began to shriek as if with one voice, "Then how will we survive?" And so they decided not to go at all. The geese' attachments to other things kept them from going to live in a very beautiful place. Similarly, our attachment to this perishable body and everything connected with it is an impediment to our going to join the Lord. The Lord is all auspicious and free from any material defects. He is the embodiment of ultimate joy, and so is His abode. There is no place there for the despicable aspects of transitory material life. Anyone who is unable to abandon his attachments to things unconnected to the Lord and wishes to hang on to those things are unable to attain Him. The Lord and Maya are opposites. Supreme auspiciousness cannot be had unless one is freed from material wants through the association of advanced devotees. Tato duhasangam utsrija satsu sajjeta buddhiman. Santa evasya chindanti vyasangam uktibhyah. An intelligent person should therefore avoid bad company and associate only with devotees. With their realized instructions, such saints can cut through the knots of material attachments. SB 11.26.26 Radhamohana Prabhu was Srila Bhakti-dayita Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada's initiated disciple. He had stayed as a brahmachari in the Gaudiya math for a while before entering householder life. People of the region held him in high esteem because of his knowledge of Vaishnav philosophy, his high standards and personal character. In Golpara he was known as Ram Mohanda. He worked as a clerk in the office of Kamakhyachan uncle, and so had the opportunity to shower him his affection and kindness by showing him the devotional path. He was thus the Pradarshak Guru who brought Bhakti-dayita Maharaj to the Gaudiya math. Because of his interest in the ultimate spiritual benefit of others, he had to face much opposition and criticism. Srila Gurudev's letters for Kamakhya were sent to Radhamohana's address. The affection of Radhamohana's pious wife and family on Kamakhya could never be repaid. In his letters, Srila Gurudev advised Kamakhya to study Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Jaivadharma in order to eradicate all doubts. As a result of reading this book, Kamakhyachan indeed found that the doubts which he had harbored for so long were effaced. In another letter, Gurudev said that if he planned to follow a life of contemplation, the Nivritti Marg, and dedicate his life to the worship of the Lord, then it made no sense to take a government job. On the other hand, if he wished to follow the path of action, the Pravritti Marg, and worship the Lord while staying at home, he should take the job. Kamakhya realized that it would not be possible for him to engage in pure devotional service in his family environment, and so he made up his mind to leave preaching activities in Hauli. My Parma Gurudev, Srila Bhakti-dayita Saraswati Goswami Thakur, the founder of all the Gaudiya maths, had visited Golpara on one occasion. He ordered his householder disciple, Nimanand Prabhu, to establish a Gaudiya math near the banks of the Brahmaputra river, in a beautiful spot on Hulukanda hill. The math was given the name Prapannashram, and was considered a branch of the Gaudiya math. In the course of time, however, due to the unavailability of personnel and other problems, the institution was lost. Later, Golpara resident Sharat Kumar Nath offered to give a building and land for the establishment of a math in the town. Srila Gurudev understood that this was Srila Prabhupada's desire, and so he accepted the offer. He established a branch of the Chaitanya Gaudiya math there in 1969. Some of the places Srila Gurudev visited while preaching in Assam were Bijni, Bhatipariya, Hauli, and Barpeta. In Hauli a great meeting was held where thousands of men and women, both of the Hindu and Muslim faiths, were present. As usual, Srila Gurudev asked the audience to save its questions for the end. Here again, however, a Muslim scholar, Maulvi, interrupted to ask, "Has anyone ever seen the soul or God? What is the proof that you are not simply deceiving everyone when you talk about the soul and God?" The audience asked Srila Gurudev not to answer as the question had been asked in an irregular manner, but he thought that if he did not respond, the ignorant would think that it was no answer. He saw that the Maulvi was carrying a book, and he asked him what its name was. The Maulvi called the book a Kitab and gave its name. Though Srila Gurudev knew several languages, including Bengali, Assamese, Hindi and English, and though his eyes were in perfect condition, he could not recognize the title of the book from where he was sitting. He asked the Maulvi if he was not deceiving him by giving him some false name. How could he prove that it was not so? The Maulvi asked the people sitting around him to confirm that the title he had given was indeed correct. Srila Gurudev said, perhaps the group was in collusion to deceive him. Maulvi Sahib was surprised by his statement and asked him what he saw. Srila Gurudev said that it looked like a bunch of scribbles. Maulvi replied that he evidently did not know Urdu, and Srila Gurudev confessed that indeed he did not. The Maulvi then asked him, if he did not know Urdu, how could he expect to know what was written there? He would first have to learn Urdu, then he would be able to confirm that he had been told the book's correct title. Srila Gurudev then took the Maulvi's own words to explain to him what he was getting at. Even if someone knows many languages, he won't be able to understand Urdu unless he has learned it. Even if one has good eyesight, unless he knows Urdu, he will neither be able to recognize what sounds are represented by its script, nor what the meaning of those sounds is. The same thing goes for understanding the soul and the super soul. Even if one has great learning and experience in this world, unless he has specifically earned the qualifications to experience the Lord, he will not be able to experience Him. There are two kinds of vision, one based on knowledge, drik, the other on simple sensual capabilities, mansdrik. The physical eye can only see physical objects and nothing else. Things which are beyond matter and the sense are self-revelatory and can only be seen with His blessings. The truth is revealed in the heart of the surrendered soul. A few people took shelter of Srila Gurudev in Hauli and became fixed in Vaishnav practices and took the vow to worship the Lord according to the teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Most noteworthy amongst these was Rameshwar Varman, who was known after initiation as Rameshwar Dasadhikari. Continued preaching in Assam. Remembering Srila Prabhupada's instructions, Srila Gurudev returned to Assam nearly every year with a force of disciples and god brothers in all ashramas. The immense efforts paid off as hundreds of men and women took to following the regulative principles and became his disciples. In some places, extremely unfavorable circumstances presented themselves. Nevertheless, Srila Gurudev remained undisturbed and continued to preach fearlessly. The great devotees who have completely surrendered to Krishna go wherever they wish without any worry. Nothing can impede their tendency to serve the Lord. Because their service has no basis in personal desire, it is unstoppable. Tathanate Madhav Tavkah Kvasid, Bhrashanti Margat Tvai Sohridah, Tvayabhigupta Vaikaranti Nirbhaya, Vinayakanik Pamurdhasu Prabhu. O Madhava, O Lord, those who have given themselves to you, who are fixed in friendship with you, never fall from the path in that way. Protected by you, they fearlessly step over the heads of armies of opponents. SB 10 February 1933. Srila Gurudev wandered from village to village simply to bring the greatest good to every living being, to turn them toward Krishna. Despite the difficulties, he travelled, sometimes by foot and sometimes by ox cart, in order to deliver the Lord's message. Some of the places he visited were Golpara, Dhubri, Basugao, Bilasiparia, Kashiketra, Sidli, Agia, Depalchum, Baridamal, Lakshmipura, Krishnai, Dudhnaai, etc. In Golpara district, Guwahati, Sarbhog, Chachka Bazar, Ketki Bari, Hauli, Baripeta Road, Pathshala, Tihyu, Bijni, Rangia, Nalbari, Jala Ghat, Bhatiparia, Unnikuri, Amin G_Ao, etc. In Kamrup and Barpeta districts, Tezpur, Tanla, Bindukuri, Rangaparia, Dhekuajuli, Mangalde, etc. In Darrang district, Silchar and Hailakandi. In Kachar district, Sibsagar, Lakhimpur, and other important towns in eastern Assam, etc. and Shillong in Meghalaya state. Most Assamese Tr1Bils are traditionally followers of the Bhagavad religion. Many Vaishnav Acharyas such as Shankar Deva, Madhva Deva, Damodar Deva and Hari Deva preached the Bhagavad throughout Assam. The topmost leader, Satradhikari, of Shankar Deva's school at that time, Narayan Deva Mishra, had great faith in our worshipable Srila Gurudev. Narayan Deva Mishra was the priest when Srila Gurudev came to Barpeta to preach in a vast assembly at the local school and college. He was especially attracted by Srila Gurudev's scholarship and his force of character and invited him to his home. While in Barpeta, Srila Gurudev stayed either at the house of Amyakanti Das and Hare Krishna Das, who were later initiated and given the names Agadmana Das and Hari Das. When Srila Gurudev went to Barpeta from Hauli in 1945, Krishan Keshav Brahmachari, Gopal Krishna Dasadhikari, Trailokyanath Vrajvasi, Madhvanand Vrajvasi and Bhumvan Mohana Dasadhikari were in his party. Another important individual who was attracted by Srila Gurudev's personality was Jiveshwar Goswami of Tihiu. He confessed to Srila Gurudev that he had been disaffected with the Gaudiya math after hearing one of its fiery householder preachers criticize another religious denomination and its doctrines. He praised Srila Gurudev, saying that though he said basically the same things, he did it in such a way that it was pleasing and he felt none of the same disturbance that he did before. Such sweetness of expression was only possible for a transcendental personality of extraordinary character. As a result of his tremendous preaching efforts, Srila Gurudev was able to open 3 maths in Assam, the first in Tezpur, then Guwahati and finally in Golpara. No mundane efforts can diminish the glory of a true Guru or devotee. For the benefit of the world's conditioned souls, Mahaprabhu took Srila Gurudev out of a restrictive situation so that he could act freely to spread his gospel of pure devotional service everywhere. Though Srila Gurudev left the Chaitanya math at a fairly advanced age, he was able to organize a great preaching effort throughout India by which countless men and women were attracted to the pure devotional religion which had been practiced and taught by Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In a very short time, he was able to establish major centers throughout India. Without the divine power invested in him by the Supreme Lord, this would never have been possible for him to take on such responsibilities. Just as a wisp of cloud cannot hide the sun, no amount of envious disruptions can hold back the brilliant manifestation of a bona fide Guru. Anyone who tries to do that will fall into the swamp of Vaishnavaprad. Calcutta. Two distinguished residents of Calcutta, Manikant Mukhopadhyay and the president of the homeopathic factory, Dr. N. Ghosh, were influenced upon hearing Srila Gurudev's vigorous delivery of Harikatha. They came forward in a time when Srila Gurudev was in apparent difficulty and became his right and left-hand men, taking the responsibility for the management and improvement of all the temples which he had established. Later, Calcutta lawyer Jayanta Kumar Mukhopadhyay was attracted by Srila Gurudev's effulgence, character and words to take up much of the responsibility of running the Sri Chaitanya Gaudiya math. Other preaching achievements. One of Srila Gurudev's extraordinary achievements was to pierce the fortress of impersonalist philosophy in the Punjab and in Hyderabad. Hundreds of men and women in these places accepted the pure doctrines of Mahaprabhu's religion and Vaishnav Sadachar and took the vow of worshipping the Lord in the manner ordained by Mahaprabhu. Atula Krishna Goswami of the Radharman temple in Vrindavan held a high opinion of Srila Gurudev, saying that he had never seen a gigantic spiritual personality of equal stature. As a result of his force of personality, Srila Gurudev acquired the land and buildings on the birth site of his own spiritual master, Srila Bhakti-dayita Saraswati Goswami Thakur, in Puri. He established centers in Sector B in Chandigarh and in the Tripura capital of Agartala, where he took over the service of the Jagannath temple. He was the chief organizer of the India-wide festivities celebrating Srila Prabhupada's 100th birthday, in which all of his god brothers took part. It seemed that no personality of any significance, whether president, state governor, judge, minister, barrister, lawyer, vice-chancellor, professor, mayor, chief commissioner, doctor, inspector general of police, wealthy citizen, westerner or member of other religious denominations participating in interfaith conferences, was not attracted to Srila Gurudev once he came into contact with him. A full account of his transcendental activities and contributions can be found in his full biography, which has been published as a separate volume. His extraordinary and exemplary character, his warmth and affectionate behavior, his outstanding tolerance and forgiveness were qualities which attracted educated and influential people, many of whom through his instigation left material life to take Tridandi Sannyas and to dedicate their lives to the service of Krishna and the devotees. It was for this reason that the Chaitanya Gaudiya math could have such wide results in such a short time. Srila Gurudev's Guru Puja lecture. Srila Gurudev gave the following lecture to his disciples in his evening class in the Calcutta temple at 35 Satish Mukherjee Road on 12th November 1967. It was Utthane Ekadashi, his appearance day. Today, Utthane Ekadashi is also the tithi when we worship our predecessor Acharya, Srimad Gaura Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, for it is his disappearance day. You have heard a great deal about Babaji Maharaj's transcendental activities and teachings from the Venerable Puri Maharaj. As I utter his name, I beg for his blessings, and I also pray for the blessings of my Guru Maharaj, who is non-different from him. By chance, this also happens to be my own birthday. Those who love me have taken this occasion to bestow copious blessings on me. Who is such a fool that he will not accept blessings when they are given, who does not take the opportunity to advance when it arises? Therefore, I accept everyone's blessings. May every one of my senses be constantly engaged in the service of Krishna and his devotees as a result of these blessings. It is the custom for those in the renounced order to worship the Guru on their own birthday. So this is my personal duty on this day. I have three types of Gurus. 1. The word Guru means the destroyer of ignorance. The embodiment of unlimited knowledge is the Lord himself, whose appearance destroys all ignorance. The Lord himself is thus the root of the truth, that is Guru. Though the second is he who personally attracted me and engaged me in the service of the Lord, who is himself another form of the Lord, he who founded the worldwide Chaitanya maths and Gaudiya maths, my Gurudev, Leela Pravisht Prabhupada Srila Bhakti-dayita Saraswati Goswami Thakur. 3. Thirdly, all the Vaishnavas are my Gurus. What do the Vaishnavas do? Just as it is the Guru's job to constantly engage the disciple in the service of the supreme object of service, the Lord, similarly the Vaishnavas keep us engaged in the service of our worshipable Lord. It is impossible to get away with anything. If you deviate in any way, they will catch you. So, I also include my disciples amongst my Gurus. Today my disciples performed Kirtan and worshipped me as their Guru. By listening to their Kirtan, I worshipped them. If by listening I had any untoward motives, if I had tried to pocketify it, then there would have been no puja. Just as Kirtan is a devotional activity, so listening is also a devotional activity, Shravan. However we express it, they are all my masters, whom I must serve. But even though they are my masters, the objects of my service, the great affection I have for them makes me instruct them, take care of and protect them in the same way that Yashoda and Nanda punished Gopal, instructed and took care of him. When Yashoda bound little Gopal to the mortar, she did not do so because she considered him to be the object of her service, she did it because she considered him to be her child. The object of service can be both the one who protects and the one who is protected, the one who takes care and the one who is taken care of. Therefore both attitudes are found in a pure devotee. Srila Prabhupada called his disciples Prabhu. He called even his most insignificant disciples Prabhu and used the polite form of the pronoun apni. He used the more intimate pronouns tui and tumi. With only very few of his disciples, he was never condescending. But he would chastise and instruct even those disciples whom he addressed as Prabhu using the respectful pronoun apni. When one calls someone Prabhu or Master, is it not paradoxical to then discipline him? Some might even consider it to be a kind of hypocrisy. But this is not hypocrisy on his part. When he calls his disciple Master, he means it. On the other hand, when the other mood comes on him, he disciplines his disciple. In one way of looking at things, the spiritual master is disciplinarian. In another, he is the disciple's dearmost friend and well-wisher. I am most grateful to all those who have blessed me today. May the result of their blessings be that my every thought and instinct be directed toward the service of Krishna and his devotees. And if anyone was really worshipping me, then he should know that he has in fact worshipped my spiritual master, who is the real object of worship. Service to the Guru is service to God. I never saw anything in my Guru other than the desire to achieve the pleasure of the Lord. He never for a moment thought that anything other than devotion to Krishna was in the true interest of the conditioned souls. Had he thought thus, he would not have been able to keep someone like me in the mutt. Vacho manasah ke rodhavega, jihva udropasthavegam, etan vegan yo vishet dhira, sarvam apima prithvi sa shishya. A sober person who can tolerate the urges of speech, the mind and anger, as well as the urges to taste nice food, to fill the belly and to satisfy the genitals, is qualified to become master of the entire world. Updeshamrit 1. Those who have controlled the 6 urges are qualified to discipline others. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur considered the above instruction to be directed towards householders and not to renunciates, but in fact, unless one has already been able to control the 6 urges, he is not qualified to leave the householder ashram. Why then did Srila Prabhupada make me a tyagi, when I have not been able to master the 6 urges? Perhaps I can make a mistake, but he certainly could not have made one. As my well-wisher, as my protector and master, why did he keep me in the mutt? The reason is that he knew with certainty that there is no other way for anyone to achieve the ultimate good without associating with Vaishnavas and engaging in the service of the Supreme Lord. Through association with the devotees, by hearing the scriptures, one is able to experience the greatness of the Lord. This gives him the impetus to serve the Lord. There is no guarantee that simply by superficially controlling the senses one will become a devotee. There are many eunuchs in the world who would have become devotees if that were the case. Such sense control or renunciation has no standing unless there is love for the Guru, Krishna and Radha. Without love for Krishna, without service to my Lord, then all this renunciation is not worth a plugged nickel, it is false renunciation. A renunciate or celibate who has no interest in service to the Lord is nowhere near as dear to us as someone who has dedicated himself to the Lord's service, who is by far superior. This is because even though at first he may be somewhat erratic in controlling his senses, through the higher taste his senses will ultimately be completely mastered, and he will have no interest in anything but Krishna. Nothing else will enchant him. Vishya vinivartante niraharasya dehina. Rasava rasopi asyapi ara drishtva nivartante. Although a person of gross corporeal consciousness may avoid sense objects by external renunciation, his eagerness for sense enjoyment remains within. However, Inner attachment to sense objects is spontaneously denounced by the person of properly adjusted intelligence due to his having had a glimpse of the all-attractive beauty of the Supreme Truth. Bhagavad-gita 2.5. One may fast, but does that stop one from desiring food? Even if one stops sense activities, the tendency to engage in such activities is not stopped. When one experiences a higher taste, however, one loses one's interest in the lower taste. When one has the experience of the joys of love for Krishna, then the inferior pleasures of the world cease to hold any charm. This is called Vairagya. This is why Narada instructed Yudhishthir, Tasmat kenapya upayen manah Krishne niveshet, O Maharaj Yudhishthir. Engage your mind in Krishna by any means possible. SB 7 January 1932. I may be renounced, but my mind is still accepting and rejecting thoughts and desires constantly. So, I am associating with my mind, not with Krishna. What benefit can come of that? It is of no benefit to me to associate with someone who simply praises and flatters me. It is far more beneficial to find the company of someone who will discipline me, who will instruct me and show me my mistakes. Devotion to Krishna has no relation to worldly learning or ignorance. If it did, then scholars and panditas would all be devotees. Whoever has realized that the ultimate goal of life is Krishna's pleasure alone does not need to waste his time in studies. I remember an event which took place when I was at the Madras Gaudiya Math, where I spent about 10 years of my life. Through the efforts of some god brothers and myself, we were able to build the Madras temple. Ramchandra Iyer, the son of the man who had donated the land for the temple, Sadashiva Iyer, advised us to learn Tamil so that we could preach to the general populace of the city. He even took steps to help us learn. I had been studying Tamil for only 3 days when a telegram came telling me to go to Puri. When I saw Prabhupada, I told him that it would take about 6 months to learn Tamil. Srila Prabhupada said, Krishna Bhakti is not transmitted by language. Through it, you may be able to transmit learning or scholarship, but that is all. Love for Krishna is communicated by one who possesses love for Krishna. Preach in whatever languages you already know. I don't advise you to lose your valuable time learning other languages. The math is there for culturing one's inherent love for Krishna. Through such culture, one feels happiness, and he communicates that happiness to others. One who loves Krishna loves every single living being. Devotion to the Lord is awakened by associating with saintly devotees. Sangen Sadhu Bhaktanam Ishwararadhnen ca. SB 7 July 1930. I may be incapable, but my worshipable Lord is not. If any of you engage me in the service of Krishna and his devotees, then my worshipable Lords, Srila Prabhupada, Mahaprabhu and Radha Krishna, will surely give you their combined blessings. May all of you be successful, may Srila Prabhupada be pleased with you all. Registration of the Chaitanya Gaudiya Math. In order to assure the proper management of the Sri Chaitanya Gaudiya Math, Srila Gurudev had the society officially registered according to the Registration of Societies, West Bengal Act XXVI of 1961. This was done on 9 August 1976. Not long thereafter, he wrote the following letter. To the helpers and workers of the Sri Chaitanya Gaudiya Math, as well as to all my disciples, my physical condition is worsening, and I do not know where I will be when I leave my body. If I should die somewhere, then I make the following submission to my disciples, whether renounced or householder, as well as to my affectionate God brothers, that I have registered all of my mutts and temples according to the Society Registration Act. The society has 12 trustees. None of these trustees can be changed unless it is proved that they have committed a serious fault contrary to the principles of pure devotion or some act which is against the interests of the math and its preaching activities. If one of the trustees leaves of his own will, then someone else must be chosen to replace him according to the rules. I have chosen Tridandi Swami Bhakti-dayita Maharaj to be President and Acharya of the Sri Chaitanya Gaudiya Math after my departure. I will be happy if everyone works toward the maintenance of the institution, preaching pure devotion and maintaining its principles under his leadership. The humble petitioner, Tridandi Bhikshu Shri Bhakti-dayita Madhava, 12 December 1976, Srila Gurudev's last instructions. The following lecture was delivered at the Calcutta Sri Chaitanya Gaudiya Math on the morning of Saturday, 30th December 1978. Tridandi Swami Bhakti-dayita Maharaj told Srila Gurudev that an inexperienced Western devotee had come to Calcutta from Chandigarh in order to receive personal instructions from Srila Gurudev himself. The devotee had been there for several days, but since the doctor had forbidden Gurudev to talk excessively, he had had no opportunity to hear him speak. It would be nice if Gurudev could say something to him. Our most worshipable Srila Guru Maharaj then started to speak, directing his words to the Western devotee who had taken shelter of him. Exclusive devotion to Krishna. I am not well and the doctor has warned me not to speak too much. It is quite possible that I do not stay much longer in this world. I am telling you that to engage in a proper practice of devotional service, you must be fixed in the worship of your desired form of the Lord. When a woman is not faithful to her husband, when she loves someone else, she cannot give herself to his service. Infidelity and exclusive devotion cannot go together. For this reason, a faithful and devoted wife will never allow anyone to take the place of her husband, nor will she criticize anyone else. She will not condemn her brother-in-law, her mother-in-law or her father-in-law, nor anyone else who is related to her husband, but will rather give each of them his or her due respect. In the same way, if you wish to advance in devotional service, worship Krishna alone. Do not criticize the other gods and goddesses, but think of them as servants of Krishna and give them their due respect in that consciousness. But be careful to never give them the place which is due to the ultimate object of your devotion. I am giving you this instruction. Take responsibility for it. Give this matter a little thought. You are a competent person. You are highly qualified, but you don't understand this tradition yet. In the Gaudiya Sampradaya, in the line from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in the religious tradition of devotion to Krishna, dedicated devotees worship Krishna exclusively. If you put other gods and goddesses on the same level as Krishna, you are making a mistake. Not all gods and goddesses are equal, nor all incarnations of Vishnu. Ete chanshaklaha punsah Krishnastu Bhagwan Swayam. After discussing all the different incarnations, Matsya, Kurma, Rama, Nisingha, etc., Vedavyas says that none of these incarnations is Krishna himself. Some of them are expansions, some are partial manifestations, but Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. J_AR Bhagavatta hai te aniya abhagavatta. SVAY Bhagwan Shabder Tahate Satta. The epithet SVAY Bhagwan can only be used for him from whom the characteristics of Godhead are derived. Chaitanya Charitamrita 1 February 1988. No one is equal to Krishna. Everyone should keep this in mind and worship Krishna exclusively and with dedication. Devotion will not increase by making a great sound and fury. Everyone should remember this. We will not condemn any other gods or goddesses, but will pray them to give us the blessing that we remain fixed on our supreme object of worship, Krishna. Instructions for the math after his departure. I have registered the math. The math is no one's personal property. But that doesn't mean that I am going to leave this place a mess, with everyone in charge. If I do that, my life's efforts will all have been wasted. I have therefore devised a management scheme, which is necessary for the proper running of the math after I am gone. One person will be named Acharya, he will be the head man or president. When I am gone, one person will take my place. Who will that be? My spiritual master did not like the idea that there should be a vote to decide the matter. To elect an Acharya is not in accordance with the principles of Hari Bhakti. God himself will decide who is the Acharya. The Acharya is the person who is most dear to him. Who will make that decision? The proper arrangement is when the Lord himself says, this person is the one who is most dear to me. Therefore the rule of the disciplic succession is that the choice should come from above. The correct process is that the order should be given from higher up. From the worldly point of view, everyone can get together to elect a leader, but the correct process is that the Lord himself indicates which devotee is filled with love for him, and he makes him the Acharya. This is the process approved by scripture. When Srila Prabhupada was ill, he asked the solicitor, Mr. J. N. Basu, to write up a constitution. We heard that the constitution could be made according to one of two methods, by nomination or by election. Finally, the constitution was written according to the latter method. But Srila Prabhupada did not like it, and he rejected it. I and 2 or 3 others were personally present when it happened. You cannot decide who is a sadhu, an acharya or realized soul by taking a vote on the matter. Someone will say one thing, another something else, and the debate will simply go on. Therefore the proper method is that the Lord himself choose which person will be honored with the position of Acharya. The scripture enjoins us to respect this process. This process is not followed only in the Gaudiya Sampradaya, it can be seen in every Vaishnav Sampradaya, the Ramanuj, the Madhava, the Nimbark and the Vishnuswami. This is the way that the disciplic succession is maintained. Therefore, the process ordained in the disciplic succession must be followed. I have therefore discussed with my senior godbrothers, who are a part of the Gaudiya Math Brotherhood, and I have decided to make Shriman Bhakti-dayita the next president in my absence. When I have gone, that does not give you all an excuse to behave just as you please. The defining characteristic of a Vaishnav is following a devotee. The Lord's blessings follow the blessings of the devotee. When a devotee is merciful to someone, the Lord's mercy follows. This is the essence of my instruction to you, please follow it. I have written in more detail elsewhere. It will not be correct if you try to throw someone out of the math as soon as there is some discord. That will result in chaos. You first have to explain and try to clarify the situation. If that still doesn't work, then give him money and a letter and send him to another math. You cannot function impetuously, but should work together and follow the person who has been made leader. It is not proper to ignore his commands and to do as one pleases. One has to follow the directions of the temple commanders. All his commands are given for the service of the Lord, bear that in mind. 3 impediments to devotional service. I want to say one more thing. We have come here to engage in devotional service to Krishna. There are 3 principal impediments we have to watch out for. 1. The desire for sense gratification. The first obstacle to devotional service is Kanaka, gold, the greed to accumulate lots of money. Your attention, your attachment, should be fixed on Krishna's lotus feet. If you become attached to anything else, you will fall down. You should not think that because outsiders will not understand, you will save money against a rainy day. Mendicants will beg, that is their dharma. Whatever money they collect they should turn over to the math on the same day. The temple managers should note that if any temple devotee falls ill, they should arrange for treatment. If necessary, they should borrow money, but arrange for treatment. I can remember a time when we didn't even have money in the math for buying groceries. Then I borrowed money from someone without telling anyone and went and bought food from the market. No one other than Uddharan Prabhu knew about it. Uddharan Prabhu would go to a householder's place and borrow money from him. The householder was Govinda Babu. If he didn't have any money, he would borrow from his wife. Later I paid all the money back. How many people know about that? Srila Gosvami Maharaj, Srila Nemi Maharaj, and I did all the collecting. I would put on a waistcoat and would go out to collect. Then I would come back and give all the money to the temple. Srimad Bhakti-dayita Maharaj, Yayabar Maharaj and Sridhar Maharaj would accompany me. Whenever they needed something I would buy it, but I never spent the temple collection money for myself. At the Calcutta math, I would say to Kushdada, is there any cloth in the math? If there is, let me have one. But I would never ask for anything that I did not need just for pleasure. None of you should set aside money that was collected for the temple. That will cause a disruption in your devotional life. It doesn't matter for the math if you decide to set aside something for yourself, Krishna will take care of the math and the devotees. But if you try to build up a savings account with money collected for the math, your spiritual life will go to hell and you won't be able to last in devotional service. Don't set aside money for yourself, give everything to the temple manager. If there is any problem, tell the temple manager. The desire for money is an obstacle to devotional service. 2. Another obstacle is association with women. Both direct association and subtle association cause problems. It goes without saying that you don't engage in gross sexual activity, but you shouldn't even think about it. Because we have given up everything to come here and engage in the service of the Lord. 3. The third obstacle is the desire for personal aggrandizement. Srila Prabhupada wrote, Kanaka Kamini Pratishtha Badhini, Chariya Che Jare Se Tu Vaishnav, Se Anasaktat Se Shuddha Bhakta, Sansar Tathay Pai Parabhav. Someone who has given up the tigresses of gold, women, and fame is a true Vaishnava. He is unattached and a pure devotee. The illusory power of the material world has been defeated by him. Prabhupada has compared the desires for wealth, women and fame with a tigress. The desire for fame and good reputation are very strong and problematic. But even someone who does not seek fame, when he engages in true service to the Lord, finds that fame comes to him of its own accord. People naturally give him their respect. People will always give respect to a true devotee. Pratisthar bhaye puri gela palasha, Krishna pratishtha kel sange gariyasha. Madhavendra Puri ran away, afraid of being distracted by fame. But when one has love for Krishna, fame flows alongside him. Chaitanya Charitamrita 2 April 147. So, you avoid these 3 obstacles. It is not an easy thing to do. They draw the mind. Money, women and fame. These are what the conditioned soul lives for. They exist to some extent in the mind of the practitioner, they are anarthas, but we should not tolerate their presence or approve of them in ourselves. Tirtha Maharaj cannot always stay here. So Jagmohana Prabhu has to run the math. Don't be offended if I am rough with you. Forgive me. I only wish to serve the Vaishnavas. I want to serve all of you. Worship the Lord with unflinching dedication. Don't stop worshipping Him, no matter what situation you are in. This is my prayer to you, my appeal, and my instruction. Chant the holy name in all circumstances. Worship Krishna always. Always respect the best Vaishnav, and don't hesitate to do so. May all auspiciousness follow you all. Vaschhatrubhyash siye kripa eva siye. Patitana pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namah. I offer my respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnav devotees of the Lord. They are just like desire trees, which can bestow anything you wish for. They are oceans of compassion who purify the fallen souls. Srila Gurudev's disappearance. On Tuesday, 27 फरवरी 1979, गोविंदा 26, 492, चैतन्याब्द, फाल्गुन 14, 1386, Bengali year, at 9 a.m., in the midst of the singing of the holy names, Srila Gurudev entered the eternal pastimes of the Lord, at the time of his morning Leela with Radha, leaving his godbrothers and disciples in an ocean of grief. It was also the disappearance day of Jagannath Das Babaji and Rasikanand Deva Goswami. He was in his own room at the Calcutta Math, situated at 35 Satish Mukherjee Road. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon on the same day, the devotees left Calcutta with his body in the accompaniment of the singing of the holy names and came to Mayapur, where he was placed in Samadhi according to the scriptural directions. The officiating priest at his funeral was H. Bhakt Pramoda Puri Maharaj, and on 1st March 1979, a festival of mourning was held in his honor at the headquarters of the Chaitanya Gaudiya Math at Ishodhya in Mayapur. On Thursday, 22 March 1979, a memorial assembly was held in the Sankirtan Hall at the Calcutta Math on Satish Mukherjee Road, under the direction of H. Parivrajkacharya Tridandi Swami Hridayvana Maharaj. The guest of honor was the publisher of the Amrita Bazar Patrika, Tushar Kanti Ghosh. Many of Srila Gurudev's godbrothers and leading citizens of Calcutta were present at the assembly. A list of mutts and institutions established by Srila Gurudev. Here is a list of the many mutts, schools, libraries, free clinics, and printing presses, the great drums of the modern Sankirtan movement. This list is given in chronological order. 1942 Shyamananda Gaudiya Math, Midinpur, WB. This temple was established by Srila Gurudev with the help of his two godbrothers, H. Bhaktivichar Yayabar Maharaj and H. Bhaktikumuda Santa Maharaj. 1948 Shri Gaudiya Math, Tezpur, Assam. 1953 Shri Chaitanya Gaudiya Math, Paltan Bazar, Guwahati, 8, Assam. 1955 Shri Chaitanya Gaudiya Math, 86 Aras Bihari Avenue, Calcutta, 26.L. 1956 Shri Chaitanya Gaudiya Math, Ishodhya, Shri Mayapur, Nadia, WB. 1956 Shri Chaitanya Gaudiya Math, Sarveshwar Haveli, Vrindavan, UP. 1960 Shri Chaitanya Gaudiya Math, Gori Bazar, Krishnangar, Nadia, WB. 1960 Shri Chaitanya Gaudiya Math, Mathura Road, Vrindavan, UP. 1961 Shri Chaitanya Gaudiya Math, 35 Satish Mukherjee Road, Calcutta, 26. The new temple was opened in 1967. 1961 Shri Gaudiya Sevashram, मधुवाना महौली मथुरा यूपी 11/1962। श्री चैतन्य गौड़िया मैथ उर्दू गली पत्थरघाटी हैदराबाद एपी 12/1962। श्रीला जगदीसा पंडित श्रीपाठ जशरिया नादिया WB 13/1967। श्री विनोदा वाणी गौड़िया मैथ 32 कालिया दहा वृंदावन यूपी 14/1969। श्री चैतन्य गौड़िया मैथ गोलपारा असम 15/1970। श्री चैतन्य गौड़िया मैथ सेक्टर 20 चंडीगढ़ 16/1972। श्री चैतन्य गौड़िया मैथ दीवान देओरी हैदराबाद एपी 17/1974। श्री चैतन्य गौड़िया मैथ ग्रैंड रोड पुरी उड़ीसा 18/1975। श्री चैतन्य गौड़िया मैथ गोकुला महाबन मथुरा यूपी 19/1976। श्री चैतन्य गौड़िया मैथ श्री जगन्नाथ मंदिरा आगरतला त्रिपुरा 20/1977। श्री चैतन्य गौड़िया मैथ 187 DL रोड देहरादून यूपी स्कूल्स 1/1946। श्री चैतन्य सारस्वत चतुष्पठी श्यामानंदा गौड़िया मैथ मिडनपुर 2/1959। श्री सिद्धांत सरस्वती प्राथमिक विद्यालय यशोद्या श्री मायापुर नादिया 3/1959। श्री गौड़िया संस्कृत विद्यापीठ यशोद्या श्री मायापुर नादिया 4/1961। श्री चैतन्य गौड़िया विद्या मंदिर प्राइमरी एंड सेकेंडरी 86 अरस बिहारी एवेन्यू कैलकाटा 26/5/1967। श्री चैतन्य गौड़िया पाश्चात्य भाषा शिक्षालय वेस्टर्न लैंग्वेजेस स्कूल 86 अरस बिहारी एवेन्यू कैलकाटा 26/6/1968। श्री चैतन्य गौड़िया संस्कृत महाविद्यालय 86 अरस बिहारी एवेन्यू कैलकाटा 26/7/1972। श्री चैतन्य गौड़िया संस्कृत विद्यालय सेक्टर 20B चंडीगढ़ 81972। श्री चैतन्य गौड़िया आंतःप्रदेशिक भाषा शिक्षालय इंडियन लैंग्वेजेस स्कूल सेक्टर 20B चंडीगढ़ लाइब्रेरीज 1/1970। श्री चैतन्य गौड़िया मैथ ग्रंथागर फॉर कंपैरेटिव रिलीजियस स्टडीज 86 अरस बिहारी एवेन्यू कैलकाटा 26/2/1972। श्री चैतन्य गौड़िया मैथ ग्रंथागार सेक्टर 20B चंडीगढ़ फ्री क्लिनिक्स 1/1959। श्री चैतन्य गौड़िया मैथ दातव्य चिकित्सालय यशोद्या श्री मायापुर नादिया 2/1972। श्री चैतन्य गौड़िया मैथ दातव्य चिकित्सालय सेक्टर 20B चंडीगढ़ 3/1978। श्री चैतन्य गौड़िया मैथ दातव्य चिकित्सालय ग्रैंड रोड पुरी उड़ीसा प्रिंटिंग प्रेस 1/1964। श्री चैतन्य वाणी प्रेस 26/1 प्रिंस गोलम मोहम्मद रोड टोल्यगुंगे कैलकाटा 33 was moved in 1966 to 34/1A माहिम हलदार स्ट्रीट कैलकाटा 26 मंथली मैगजीन 1/1961। श्री चैतन्य वाणी पत्रिका 35 सतीश मुखर्जी रोड कैलकाटा 26 अदर टेम्पल्स अंडर श्रीला गुरुदेव्स मैनेजमेंट 1/1955। सरभोग गौड़िया मैथ चचका बाजार बारपेटा डिस्ट्रिक्ट असम 2/1955। श्री गदाई गौरांगा मैथ PO बलियाती ढाका बांग्लादेश